It's 3:17 a.m. and I'm wide awake, heart pounding like I just ran a marathon I never signed up for. I haven't slept through the night in months. Not because of some clinical insomnia you can medicate away, but because the moment the lights go out, my mind transforms into a courtroom. And I'm always the defendant. The charges? Let me pull the file. There's the email from my boss that just said we need to talk. There's my kid's face at dinner tonight. And then there's my dad, forgetting names now, not just where he left his keys, and I'm 3 states away pretending everything's fine on our weekly phone calls. I've rehearsed so many conversations that never happened. Every single one of them ends in disaster. I've been fired 17 times in my imagination. I've had the "we need to make difficult decisions" talk with my spouse 6 times this week, and not once did they actually say those words. I've apologized for things that nobody accused me of. I've defended myself in arguments that exist only in the shadows of 3 a.m. You know that feeling when the darkness amplifies every fear, and 3 a.m. feels like a verdict you can't escape? The clock becomes a judge. The silence becomes a jury. And you're just lying there, waiting for a sentence you're convinced is already written. So I drag myself to the kitchen before dawn, because that's what you do when sleep has abandoned you. You make coffee you won't drink. You stare at cold tile floors like they might have answers. The refrigerator hums that low, persistent buzz that fills empty rooms. I lean against the counter, feeling the full weight of my own body, exhausted before the day has even begun. The Bible is on the shelf where it's been for weeks, untouched. I see it there, spine intact, pages unopened, and I think, what good would it do? I've prayed. I've asked. I've begged. And nothing changes. The bill is still unpaid. The email is still waiting. My kid is still sad. My dad is still forgetting. This isn't atheism. This is the quiet, desperate question of someone who believes but is running on empty. God, are you even listening? Because I've been talking, and the silence is deafening. But this morning was different. Not because I received an answer, but because I stopped asking for one. The verse came back to me unbidden, the way old songs do when you least expect them. Philippians 4 verses 6-7. I used to hate these words. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Hate might be a strong word. Let me be honest, I resented this verse. It felt like an accusation wrapped in a promise. Do not be anxious. Great. Thanks. Super helpful. As if anxiety is a switch I can just flip off. As if I haven't tried. As if I enjoy the 3 a.m. courtroom drama. I had heard this verse quoted at me like a spiritual prescription: just pray more, just trust more, just stop worrying. And every time, I felt the double weight of the original anxiety plus the shame of failing at faith. I was performing peace I didn't possess. Smiling at church. Nodding at Bible studies. Saying I'm fine, just tired when people asked. But inside, I was exhausted from pretending that prayer was working, that surrender was simple, that I wasn't secretly furious at God for staying silent. I realized I had been treating prayer like a negotiation, presenting my case, demanding a resolution when God was inviting me to a surrender. And I don't mean the pretty, polished surrender we sing about in worship songs. I mean the ugly, broken kind. The kind where you stop using church language and start using real words. So I sat down at the cold kitchen table, coffee untouched, and I spoke to God not like a theologian but like a person who had nothing left. My words were fragments. Splinters of honesty. I'm scared. That was the first thing I said. Not, Heavenly Father, I come before you. Not, I declare your promises. Just, I'm scared. Then, I'm tired. Then, I don't understand what you're doing. Then, I can't do this anymore. And then I stopped talking. The tears came. Not the pretty kind you see in movies. The messy kind. Tears falling onto the cold kitchen table, pooling on the surface. My breathing was ragged, uneven, the kind of breathing you do when you've been holding everything in for too long and your body finally overrules your pride. I sat there, shoulders shaking, and I waited. Nothing dramatic happened. No voice from heaven. No vision. No sudden warmth. Just quiet. But this quiet was different. It wasn't empty. It was present. It was the kind of quiet that doesn't answer your questions but sits with you in them. The kind of quiet that doesn't fix your problems but lets you know you're not facing them alone. When I stopped performing faith and started confessing failure, the silence stopped feeling like absence and started feeling like presence. The refrigerator was still humming. The ceiling fan was still clicking. The bill was still on the counter. The email was still in my inbox. Nothing in my circumstances had changed. But something in me had shifted. It was like that gray light before dawn, not day yet, but promising its coming. I was still uncertain. Still anxious. Still sitting in a kitchen at 4 a.m. with cold coffee and red eyes. But I was no longer alone. I didn't get my answers that morning. I didn't get a breakthrough. I didn't get a miracle. I got something I wasn't looking for. I got the God of peace instead of the peace I was demanding. And that's when I began to understand the difference between asking for a gift and receiving the giver. The difference between wanting relief and wanting relationship. The difference between praying for God to change my situation and letting God change me in the middle of it. But peace didn't come the way I expected, it came as a person, not a solution. I used to think peace meant the problem disappears. I was wrong. That morning in the kitchen, nothing vanished. But something had shifted in the room, and it wasn't my circumstances. It was my posture. I had spent months negotiating with God like a hostile contract dispute. I'll trust you if you show me the outcome. I'll surrender when you give me clarity. I'll rest after you fix this. And every single time, the anxiety came back harder because the terms were never met. So I opened my Bible again. Not like a devotional exercise. Like a person looking for oxygen. And I landed on Philippians 4 verses 6 to 7. But this time I read them slowly, like a foreign language I was finally learning to speak. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I stopped at that phrase, the peace of God. Not the peace of resolution. Not the peace of understanding. Not the peace of the problem finally dissolving. The peace that belongs to God Himself. The peace He possesses. The peace that is His very nature offered to guard my heart and mind. I had been chasing the wrong peace my entire Christian life. I wanted peace from God, the peace of answered prayers, the peace of closed doors, the peace of favorable outcomes. But Paul wasn't describing a transaction. He was describing a person. And then that word, guard. It means a sentry standing watch, a garrison protecting a vulnerable city, a soldier stationed at the gates through which enemies could enter. Your heart has gates. Your mind has gates. And anxiety doesn't knock politely, it storms, it sieges, it slips through cracks you didn't know existed. But the peace of God doesn't just comfort you. It stands sentry. It patrols the perimeter of your thoughts. It guards the entry points where fear tries to breach. I sat there at the cold kitchen table and realized I had been asking God to remove the army outside the walls. He was offering to station His peace inside the gates. Here's what nobody tells you about God's peace: it doesn't always change your circumstances, it changes your center of gravity. The problems were still outside. But something inside me was being garrisoned. Then I turned to Isaiah. But a friend had once mentioned Isaiah 26 verse 3, and it surfaced in my memory like something I'd heard in a dream. I found it, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." That word steadfast caught me. I discovered the Hebrew underneath it is samak, to lean, to brace, to put your full weight upon something solid, the way you lean against a wall when your legs can't hold you anymore, the way you brace against a doorframe during an earthquake, the way a child collapses against a parent's chest after a nightmare. And that's when the truth hit me like a freight train. My mind had been stayed on the problem, not the person. I was bracing against the storm, not leaning on the rock. I had been doing the exact opposite of what Isaiah described. My mind was stayed on the medical bills. Stayed on the boss's tone in that email. Stayed on the silence from my daughter. Stayed on every possible catastrophic outcome my imagination could manufacture at 2 a.m. I wasn't steadfast on God, I was obsessed with my fears. And obsession feels like vigilance. It feels like responsibility. It feels like you're doing something productive by worrying. But it's just bracing against wind that was never meant to hold you up. Anxiety isn't defeated by willpower, it's displaced by worship. You can't empty your mind of fear, you fill it with the faithfulness of God. So I tried something I'd never actually tried before. Not a one-time prayer of surrender. Not a desperate cry in a crisis. But a deliberate, moment-by-moment practice of leaning. When the fear about the medical bill surfaced, instead of running financial calculations in my head, I whispered, "I'm staying on you right now." When the mental image of the boss's disappointed face flashed through my mind, instead of rehearsing defensive speeches, I breathed, "You're my stay." When the ache of my daughter's distance twisted in my chest, instead of composing a guilt-tripping text message, I leaned, "I trust you with her more than I trust my own worry." It felt clumsy at first. Awkward. Like learning to walk after a spinal injury, every step required conscious effort. My brain kept defaulting to problem-solving mode because that's what brains do when they've been trained by years of self-reliance. I still reached for my phone before my Bible some mornings. I still caught myself spiraling into what if thinking at 2 p.m. on a random Tuesday while pretending to focus on a spreadsheet. But now there was a difference. I recognized the spiral faster. And I had a practiced response. Not stop worrying, which is an impossible command that just adds shame to anxiety. But stay on him, which is a relational invitation. Samak. Lean. Brace. Put your weight here. The problems didn't vanish. I need you to hear that because someone told you that following Jesus means your life gets easier, and they lied to you. The medical bill still sat on the counter. The boss still wanted that meeting. The child still seemed distant. I didn't get a miracle breakthrough. I got something harder to explain. I got steadiness in the middle of instability. Not numbness, I still felt the weight of it all. But the weight wasn't crushing me the same way because I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. It was like a ship in a storm. The waves didn't calm. The wind didn't stop. The rain didn't let up. But the anchor held. And when the anchor holds, the ship doesn't have to understand the storm to survive it. The boss meeting finally happened on a Thursday afternoon. I walked into that office with shaking hands and a stomach full of acid. The conversation was worse than I feared. Numbers were discussed. I want to teach you the prayer I prayed that day, not because the words are magic, but because they're honest. And I need you to picture this with me, not some polished altar call, not stained glass, not a worship band playing softly in the background. I'm talking about a corporate bathroom with graffiti scratched into the door. Someone wrote "Karen was here" with a ballpoint pen and a fluorescent light that flickered every 7 seconds like a nervous heartbeat. I could hear my co-workers walking past, heels clicking on the linoleum, laughing about lunch plans, completely unaware that 20 feet away their colleague was falling apart in a bathroom stall. And here's the thing I learned that day: God doesn't need a sanctuary to show up. He doesn't need organ music. He doesn't need you to have your life together. He just needs you to be honest. Because holy ground isn't a location, it's a posture. It's where you stop pretending and start praying. So I sat there on that bathroom floor, and I didn't pray some elegant, theologically precise prayer. I just started talking. And I want to share with you what I said, not so you can copy it like a script, but so you can see what honest surrender actually sounds like when you've run out of your own strength. Before I prayed, though, I said something out loud that surprised even me. I whispered it to myself in that empty bathroom, and now I'm saying it to you. I received the peace of God, and my heart will rest in Him today. Not I will manufacture peace. Not I will try harder to be calm. Not I will earn peace by having perfect faith. I receive it. Like opening your hands to accept a gift you didn't pay for and can't afford. And this is the memorable truth I need you to carry with you: you don't need to understand the plan to trust the planner. You don't need to see the way to know the waymaker. You don't need to have all the answers to rest in the one who does. So let me pray with you right now, wherever you are. Not a polished prayer. Not a performance. Just honesty before the God who already knows anyway. Lord, I bring you the email I'm afraid to open. I bring you the conversation I've been avoiding, the one that makes my stomach tighten every time I think about it. I bring you the diagnosis that I can't stop Googling at midnight. I bring you the debt that keeps stacking up no matter how hard I work. I bring you the disappointment I've never said out loud, the dream that died, the prayer that seemed unanswered, the hope that felt foolish. I bring you the child I can't protect, the one making choices that break my heart, the one I can't reach no matter how many texts I send. I bring you the marriage I can't fix, the distance that's grown between us that no date night seems to close. I bring you the future I can't control, all the what-ifs that ambush me at 2 a.m. when my defenses are down. And now, Lord, I bring you my body, because anxiety doesn't just live in my thoughts, it lives in my shoulders, in my jaw, in my chest. Quiet the racing heart. Slow the spinning thoughts. Release the tension I've been carrying in my neck for months, this weight I wasn't designed to carry. Let my shoulders drop. Let my breath deepen. Let my body remember what peace feels like. Fix my thoughts. Not on the storm, but on the one who walks on water. Not on the waves, but on the one who commands them to be still. Not on my weakness, but on your strength made perfect in it. Be my stay. Be my anchor. Be my center when everything else is spinning out of control. And now, just breathe with me for a moment. Not because the problems are solved. Not because you've figured it all out. But because you've just handed the weight to someone stronger than you. Inhale. Exhale. He's got this. He's got you. I want to speak a blessing over you now, not a generic one, but one for the specific battle you're fighting today. May you walk into this day not with all the answers, but with the presence of the answer. May the peace that guarded Christ in Gethsemane when he was sweating blood, when his friends fell asleep, when the cross was hours away, may that same peace guard your heart in this boardroom, this classroom, this hospital room, this courtroom, this living room where the argument is still echoing. Here's your action step, and it's so simple you might dismiss it, but don't. Today, every time you feel the anxiety rising, every time the fear starts whispering, every time your mind starts racing toward worst-case scenarios, whisper this: stayed on you. Not a long prayer. Not a theological treatise. Just 3 words. A breath. A leaning. A moment of return. Stayed on you. Try it right now. Whisper it. Feel the difference between gripping and trusting, between bracing and leaning. This isn't the end of your struggle with anxiety, but it can be the end of struggling alone. You've been fighting this battle in isolation, thinking you had to defeat it before you could bring it to God. But He's been here the whole time, waiting for you to stop hiding and start handing it over. Let me take you back to 3:17 a.m. where this whole story began. I still wake up at that hour sometimes. The room is still dark. The ceiling fan still clicks in that annoying rhythm. The same problems are still there: the medical bills, the work stress, the relationship tensions. They haven't magically disappeared. But something is different now, and I can't explain it except to say this: the panic has lost its power. The room feels different because I'm not alone in it anymore. The silence isn't empty, it's inhabited. The darkness isn't threatening, it's a cocoon. The problems haven't changed, but I have. Or more accurately, my posture has. I'm not bracing against the storm anymore, I'm leaning on the rock. I learned that peace isn't the absence of the storm, it's the presence of Christ in the boat. And here's what gives me hope: He's not afraid of your chaos. He's not intimidated by your anxiety. He's not put off by your panic attacks. He's not disappointed that you're struggling.